Okie doke. So I want to make a video that just makes sure that the FMOD Unity integration is all working. Going through kind of initially how to get FMOD and Unity all working, making sure that everything is looking and sounding good, and that we can actually get sound working between FMOD and Unity, and we can run that live connection between the two as we get the sound in there. So here's my Unity hub. I've got a warning message here. It's just complaining about missing editor version. I don't know why. It's trying to open the project with an older. That's kind of weird. So I'm just going to set that to our agreed 2023.1.19 F1. La-di-da, and that should open. And I haven't actually ran the project in that older version, so I'm not expecting any issues, but I do have a pop-up saying that I do. Save project. Okay, that shouldn't happen. I don't recall opening the Unity project in that older version, so I'm not sure why that would happen. But if I have any problems here, what I'm going to do is actually just delete the project completely and re-download it from the asset store after I open my kind of default project, 3D project, as mentioned in this document as we went through in class. Open up the 3D, create project, and then grab the actual 3D game kit project from the asset store as per these instructions. And yeah, if I get any kind of weirdness or anything like that, it seems to think that it was opened in an older version of Unity. I certainly don't think I did that because I don't even know if I have that older version installed anymore. I've got the 2018 one. But yeah, I don't actually have 2018 one. I've only got the one that I should be using, so that is weird. Anyway, it should be fine. And what we're going to do here, just as the document suggests, we're going to make sure that the FMOD, it's kind of like a plugin. The integration is actually working in Unity because we can't really go any further until that's sorted. So how to do that? It's pretty straightforward. I believe it's actually covered in the other document I have called FMOD Unity Bible. Let me just get that on the screen so you can see exactly which bit I'm referring to. Install FMOD manually into Unity. Here we go. So you have to go on the FMOD website and download this little file. And the reason that you know this is working is because the end result is that you get this FMOD drop down up here. And we need that. You can't really proceed without that. So how to get that working is essentially explained in this document. You just go on the FMOD website. You might need to create an account. It's free. And eventually you can actually go to FMOD for Unity. Just go down to the very first one, 2.02.04, download that, and you get a little file that looks like that in your downloads. You double click that, and then you import that. And you get this pop-up, which I'll show you what it looks like, because you can actually run it anytime. It's called the Setup Wizard. And it looks like this. And I will just say, don't use this because it can cause you more problems than it can actually solve. And the things that it solves are things that we should really know about anyways. There are these two things here. One is we need to link the FMOD project to the Unity project. And I'm going to do that in FMOD edit settings. So let's just close this. FMOD edit settings. That should already be sort of expanded bank import. It should be set already to source type FMOD Studio project. What we need to do is point this project path to the FMOD project that we're working from, which for me is 3D game. For you, it might be different, but it's essentially, it's your FMOD project that contains all of those test files and any sound design that you've done. Does not contain any build banks. Please build your project in FMOD Studio. Okay, so it's complaining that we don't have any banks actually built from that FMOD project. So the FMOD events tab, oh, you might not have that, by the way. I'll just show you how to get that up. Go to FMOD event browser. This is really important. The event browser, which is now loaded on my other screen. Let me get it back. Click and drag that tab somewhere. I would recommend down on the bottom of your hierarchy, because I don't want to use the inspector. It's too kind of important. I've got my 3 views down the bottom, and how I got those, by the way, let me just show you. Like, if you've got nothing set up here, animation is super important. If you've got something like this or similar, maybe you just got project, I would recommend not having big icons, because we need to make best use of our screen space. And if we right click on this tab, we can say add another one, another project tab, drag it over here. I want another project tab, and I can drag it here. And what I can do is say lock this one, lock that one too. Don't lock this one. And what that means is if I click on things in the world and all that, you know, it will sometimes show you where it is in the project view, which is really useful. So, so yeah, that's the view that I like. And the FMOD view is actually showing me all the stuff from the examples project. So I don't want that. So I would actually go to the FMOD project from you know, the footsteps with the test voice. Let me just say debug voice. You know, this doesn't really matter so much. I'm just showing you what's on these tracks. These are footsteps. If I actually build this, it should update Unity. It might take a minute. But yeah, that should update, because in the FMOD project directory that we've told it to use, none of those events exist anymore. It's a very clean FMOD project. Well, we're just starting to build it out, and it should only have the sounds or the events that are assigned, which is just these two at the moment. Nothing else is assigned, just the footstep and the dropship. So let me just see if it even has the dropship. It doesn't yet. This is something actually that we had happen in the class as well. And I'm just going to go to that location and kind of troubleshoot this. You might not have this issue, but just in case you do, I think it might be good that I kind of show you this, because I'm troubleshooting in real time here. Build. This is the folder where FMOD will actually build files, and the directory name C users map documents FMOD Studio 3D game build. Well, it does exist, and I think that's fine, because there we have our built banks. So yeah, that's a funny one. I don't know why Unity is doing that. I kind of feel like this just needs to be sort of deleted and re-added or something. I think the fix for this was actually just rebuilding it. Just build it maybe a few times. FMOD also has a way of pointing the build somewhere, but because we've told Unity to look at FMOD's project, we don't actually need to do this in FMOD, but in Unreal, this would need to be going to a particular Unreal folder. So that's where you do that if you ever need to in FMOD. Okay, so I might actually just reopen the project and see if that helps, because there's certain things that happen when the project boots that might be the reason that's an issue. So hopefully this should fix itself now. What we're going to do now is we're going to check that the Unity audio is disabled, and we're going to enable the FMOD audio. And how we do that is by yes, update yourself, please. Close. Great, sorted. So how we actually tell Unity to use the FMOD audio is by adding a couple of things called listeners. So a listener is just where our ears are in the game world, if you like, and they need to be added to every scene. So if I go to the scenes, if I double click on the start scene, all the start scene is basically just a UI screen that loads us into level 1 or level 2. But even the start scene has a listener because we have audio in the start scene, or we will do. And the listener is located in the camera. Here it is. So if I play the game, I'll hear the audio because the audio listener is on. So if I turn that off, I'm not going to get audio. And I need to add an FMOD type of component. So these are all the scripts that kind of get built in when the FMOD Unity integration is installed, and it's really useful, and we kind of have to do that because we need some of these, especially the listener. So there it is, and that's all we have to do, and we just have to do that for every scene. There's only 3 of them. So let's go into the gameplay. Level 1. Do I want to save the start scene? Yeah. We should be able to go back in to our cameras at any stage. And for level 1 and 2, it's called a camera brain. This one is already disabled because I was probably playing with it already, and that's fine. And let me just check level 2. Level 2, camera rig, camera brain. Audio listener is there, so I'm going to add the FMOD studio listener. Cool. Back to level 1, save. That's basically what the FMOD Unity wizard does. Those 2 things, which are really important. It tries to do them in a way that's automatic, and it sometimes kind of adds or deletes things that you don't want deleted, like bits of the camera, and Unity will therefore complain, and that is very problematic. So that's why I think it's better to do it manually. Okay, so we now have our test events. These are actually our real events. Footstep. And we can actually test them here, which is really nice. They work there, so they should work when we get them into the game. And when we do that, when we select an event, it's kind of annoying, but we can't no longer see the events unless we drag this out. So there we go. So sorry hierarchy, but we need more space than we thought, which is fine because I usually search the hierarchy anyway. It's fine. You can search it like that, and then the game goes white until you clear your search. So that's sort of what I do anyways. Okay, now we're not going to integrate the footsteps right now because that is a bit more involved, but we have them ready there. We have a dropship, and that's a good file to use to just make sure that we can place things in the game in the most basic way, which is using components, FMOD components, one called the Studio Event Emitter. So let me just find the dropship. Where are we? I'm going to use the right mouse button. I'm going to hold that down. While that's held down, I can W, A, S, and D around the map, which is really nice, and I can Q and E to go down and up. And this is how I would recommend navigating Unity, because honestly, it's kind of annoying otherwise. Here's the dropship. Cool. I found Ellen looking a bit of a cross there with her arms out, and the dropship. So let me click the dropship. Here's the dropship prefab. There's actually a couple of dropship prefabs, but as I learned today, it's not this one, it's this one. It's that one. There's actually another one, is there? Oh, that's strange, it's not selected there. Anyway, it's this one because it shows in the inspector. Let's add the event emitter. This is the one that we use to trigger events. And here's how it works. We add it, expand it, it appears as a component at the bottom of the inspector. Nothing's going to happen because it doesn't have an event to play. So we need to drag the dropship event here. Nothing's going to happen because there's no play instruction set. So if I just set this play instruction to object start, which is the object basically existing in the level, that should be all I need to do to get it working. So let me just check what level I'm in. Press play, see what happens. Fingers crossed. Aha! You might not be able to hear it on the recording, but it is coming from the dropship. Now it's very, very faint, so it's actually very easy to kind of not hear that at all and to think that our sound is broken. And like I said before, this is where this feature, live update, becomes just our bread and butter. Let's turn it on. The spatializer is spatializing. So there's a 20 meter attenuation curve applied to this dropship sound here. 20 meters, same as the footstep. If I change this to off, there's absolutely no volume fall off or no attenuation happening, irrespective of where the character is in the map. So let me turn that off and see what happens.
Ambient loop. Ambient loop. Ambient loop. Ambient
Perfect.
Ambient
Just as we thought,
Ambient
the sound isn't getting any quieter,
Ambient loop. Ambient
but we can still position it. We can still tell that it's coming from the spaceship or the dropship.
Ambient
So you could say this has no attenuation, but it's still spatialized, it's still positioned.
Ambient loop.
Cool.
Ambient loop.
And actually,
Ambient
let's
loop.
change this to like 50 and re-enable the curve
Ambient
and just see how that feels.
Ambient loop.
That's just too much. Like I don't want to hear the dropship
Ambient loop.
unless I'm really close up into it. So actually,
Ambient loop.
let's just try 10 actually, because this is potentially quite a nice little Easter egg.
Ambient loop.
Yeah, this is a really nice little Easter egg sound. So we only hear all the kind of circuitry and stuff when we're in the dropship.
Ambient loop. Ambient
So it works. So I can turn down or I can disable the debug voice here. It served its purpose.
Ambient loop.
Or because it's just a generic one, I could just delete it like that. It's up to you. I mean, it's very easy to just re-add a debug voice. So, yeah, but if you're not sure, just turn it down. And then you can always turn it on later on.
Ambient loop. Ambient
And
loop.
yeah, remember that this is
Ambient
playing
loop.
from Unity. So it's not playing in
Ambient
FMOD anymore. So we don't see the timeline
loop.
actually doing anything here because it's coming from
Ambient
Unity.
Ambient
If I
loop.
stop the live update,
Ambient loop. Ambient loop. Ambient loop.
it still plays in
Ambient
Unity.
loop.
But
Ambient loop.
I think it's good to keep it on because
Ambient
we
loop.
want to hear all of our changes and we want to turn that off. So that's it. We now have audio working in Unity. We've got over the little issue that we had where Unity was looking at another FMOD project. We've got some bleepy bloops happening here, and I want you to just continue this process because the more you do this stuff, the more you're thinking like a sound designer. You are sound designing now. You're not just designing the actual sound. I mean, you might be designing it or just getting it from someone else. But the point is you're designing its behavior in the game, which is really the important bit. And you're starting to think like an integrator for game, because other thoughts come to mind now that we're doing the design in Unity, which is what else should happen when you get inside the dropship? Well, we're going to add some ambient files. I mean, we can still do that. Actually, let's just do that really quickly. Let me just make a test file here. It's going to use this test audio. I'm just going to copy that track. Actually, you can do things like that in FMOD. It's great. Just copy from one event to another. So I now have a test event. Nothing's happening with it because I've not assigned it to a bank. And I need to actually restart the game because it's not going to appear here. I need to actually press F7 for it to build. And now I should have a test event. Once this finishes, the test event should appear here. And I can drag that into the world. There we go. And the inspector will show you the test event. It's just like a prefab, like a test emitter, it says. And it's actually a good idea to rename this, because even though it's a test event, we've actually automatically generated a prefab in our level. That doesn't make any sense to call it test emitter. So I think a good naming convention would be to use FMOD and then the name of the actual thing. In this case, it's just test, because then it makes sense. We can see it in the hierarchy and we can search by FMOD, which is something I do in Unreal every day. And it's easier to manage. And we could even make like a parent prefab, and we could kind of hide it or like child it under the parent so that we can expand it as if it, you know, like any other prefab, like I'm doing it with the camera right now. We could do the same thing with our FMOD. Like our audio, we could have an audio, you know, hierarchy going on here, which is quite nice. So that's not going to do anything when I press play because I've not told it to do anything. Let's just double check that. Nothing should happen here. So I can't hear the voice anymore. And if I actually, whoa, the original audio jumps back for a second when you stop. If I select the event and say, okay, object start, which is going to be basically level start, there's actually a lot of different instructions we can use. Honestly, most of them don't serve our purpose, which is why we're going to look at other ways later on. But object start should be the main one here. This FMOD studio event emitter is really mainly for set and forget sounds, like just sounds that just play as soon as we're in the level. But interestingly, they could be inside like prefabs like the chomper or whatnot. But the behavior is just going to play when the level boots in, which might not always be what we want to. So we're going to look at better ways to do the chomper sound. But for anything in the world that might make a sound, maybe these trees make a sound, maybe there's some leaf movement going on. That's something that I would do in games that I'm working on. I would use trees. That makes total sense because putting sounds in a level, it is useful for, let's say, like stuff like water where it's not immediately clear what prefab we use, and like kind of boundary areas. It's fine, but if we can attach a sound to a prefab, even better. They're, I think, the original audio assets and reverb zones and stuff like that. That's how they've got some assets there. So we can leave those there because we might reference them. But our FMOD ones are yellow, so it's even easier to see. Anyway, now it should play because it's just a set and forget. It's not having to do anything too kind of crazy. It's just playing and the level starts.
Ambient loop. Ambient loop.
Yep.
Ambient loop. Ambient loop.
That's it.
Ambient loop.
So that's basics of getting sounds working
Ambient loop.
in Unity from FMOD. And now we know how to connect to FMOD and change things in FMOD. And that's it. We're off to the races now. We can go for it. We can focus on our sound design in Reaper, focus on how things are behaving and triggering in FMOD. And most of the time it's just a simple play instruction, or it may be a loop, as you've seen. And that's it. Get them into Unity and look at the very basic way that we can trigger them, which is using this emitter component, and we're set for what's to come in the future. So thanks for watching.